Hey, I wanted to revisit this little book, Star, because I didn't think I really um, did justice to what this relatively, you know, little simple contained story is really about. Um, Yukio Mishima, the guy who wrote it, he was, he was a celebrity as much as he was an author in Japan at the time. And so this book, which he wrote in 1960, 10 years before his death, he's dealing with some of the ways in which celebrity becomes a, um, a self-contained world. So, you know, this character, for instance, he's 23. He'll be 24 tomorrow, is what it says at one point. He'll be 24 tomorrow. This is the day before his 24th birthday. And he's basically got everything that a celebrity could want. He's got this series that he's in, this movie that he's in. He's got a series, I believe, or a character he commonly plays. And so he's this, this tough guy, this cool guy, walking away from a woman kind of thing. And even just the relatively ridiculous style that he has created, all of his fans are wearing it. He calls it the quote the uniform, and they're wearing this uniform. And this guy, I mean, he could clearly have anyone he wanted, but the woman who he's choosing to have as in a relationship is a woman 6 years older than him. She's, or 6 or 7 years older than him. It says that she looks 40, but she is just over 30. So about 6 or 7 years older than him. Maybe seven, 6, 7, 8, something like that, years older than him. And, uh, and she is ugly. And I know that sounds like a harsh judgment, but that's just what the book calls her. The book is told entirely from Rikio's point of view, and he is, pretty blunt about the way that he sees those around him. And he's also very, very, very self-absorbed. It's all about himself, and one of the reasons why he enjoys his celebrity is in part because when he is acting, he's in control. He is constructing the world, and he enjoys that feeling. But at the same time, it has created a divide for him between the real world on the one hand and the fantasy world on the other. And it's the fantasy world that is becoming increasingly real to him. It's increasingly important to him. And what's interesting about this, as a television or film actor, not a stage actor, but a television or film actor, he does not necessarily film things in a chronological order. So, you've seen movies, you know what I'm talking about in terms of the way in which characters oftentimes have very deep emotional states. They have to be very much in love or very much enraged, or they have to be, hyperactive or, very vigilant or very on top of their linguistic sparring game in a scene. Okay, fine. When we watch this in a heavily edited format in which we see these scenes go together. And if the actor is a good actor and the director is a good director, and the writing is good writing, everything comes together so that it seems continuous. This character perhaps has just had a fight with his girlfriend, and now he's gone out the door, and so he's upset. He's reflecting on the sorts of things that he and his girlfriend just said to each other. He's considering his future, and as the movie goes on, that this fight has had some impact on this character, and of course has had some impact on the girlfriend as well, etc. going forward. All fine and good. When we're watching it, that's what we see. But particularly in this particular production that this guy is on, his director does not film things in sequential order. In fact, he takes pride almost in filming them out of order. So this is what you have to imagine. Okay, you have to imagine that he just gets a script that says He's walked out of the door. He's just broken up with his girlfriend. He just had this big fight with his girlfriend. Doesn't know where the relationship is going, and now he has to act in that emotional state. Okay, and that's the kind of thing that Yukio is interested here. In our day-to-day lives, just walking around, our emotional, mental states, our relationship to the world can seem, unpracticed, can seem very natural, can just, flow from who we are and what's going around us naturally. Our friend walks in the door, we say, "Hey, how you doing? Haven't seen you for a while." A person we don't like, says hi to us, like, "Yeah, whatever." Okay, so it's very natural. We don't necessarily have to give it a whole lot of thought. It just kind of happens because that's what's going on. So in our real world, if we were to break up with a girlfriend, have a fight with a girlfriend, and go out the door, we know what emotion we would be feeling, in the sense of we can imagine that situation. But we don't, when we imagine it, place ourselves in that situation. And that's, of course, exactly what a good actor is going to do, what any actor is striving to do. And, Yukio's politics and his artistic point of view do have that search for perfection. They do have that kind of, desire to make this unstable, changing world into a more continuous, meaningful place. And that's how meaning is accomplished by, things that are stable. There is that kind of thing going on. So take that kind of perspective and place that in the kind of perspective that this actor is in. He is just told one day, okay, now you have to act like this. And so he has to take on those emotional states. And so his emotional states as an actor, his relationship to the world is fractured, just like this picture, which is the point of that picture. It's fractured. He no longer relates to the world in a natural, just this is what happens kind of way, but in a practiced way. In a way, if you ever heard that a sociopath has none of the emotions that we have, that they just learn to mask, to mirror them. So a sociopath, when someone who is their friend walks in the door, they don't have any instant, "Oh yeah, hey, there's my friend." No, they have to find a way to mirror that approach. So that is kind of what a actor is within this construction that Yukio is dealing with here, is almost as if it is a voluntary psychotic state in which he has got to emulate emotional states that he does not personally feel. He has to go to a place that isn't really where he currently necessarily is. Okay? And of course, a good actor is someone who is able to do this well. So there's a sense in which this kind of, psychotic fracturing of reality becomes more real for this actor than real reality. Because in real reality, he is, not doing the sort of practiced kind of emulating what he's supposed to be kind of way. And that has become what he has to do to survive and to earn a living and to make his mark in the world and all those kind of things. And so that has become more real to him than the fake world. Than the real world. And that's exactly the quandary that Yukio is looking at. And we can look at this not just as the state of mind of an actor, we can also look at this in terms of our own relationship to consumer culture and our relationship to particularly celebrity culture. The ways in which we look at an actor and, we may admire Iron Man, Tony Stark. We may think, wow, what a great guy. But Tony Stark isn't real. Robert Downey Jr., who plays him, is just some guy. Now, he's a good actor and he has a history, a specific, particular history. But he's just some guy. He's not this brilliant scientist guy. He is not this crime fighting guy. I've seen interviews with Robert Downey Jr., and he seems like a decent man. He does. But at the same time, he is not a hero who is sacrificing his life for reality. That's Iron Man. That's Tony Stark. That's a character that he plays. And we don't want to confuse the two. But we live in a world which pushes us into that confusion. Just think of little things like, things like, the police or the courts, or, what does an actual real FBI agent look like? What's a real actual FBI agent do? Now, obviously, there are FBI agents out there, and there are people related to FBI agents who know the truth about this. But for the vast majority of us, we don't have a clue. What we know is what we see on TV. So, take a show like CSI, for instance. We can know, absolutely, that police work does not resemble CSI, hardly at all. We can know this. But since we don't actually know what it does involve, we don't have a way to distinguish how unreal what we're seeing really is. The same thing with any particular police show, and the same thing with any legal show, and superheroes, of course. I mean, what would it really be like to be able to do the kinds of things that Iron Man does? What would that actually feel like in real life? None of us know. No, none of us know because it can't be done. And when you're dealing with even more fantastic characters, it gets even worse and worse. Okay, and historical figures, same thing. Like, back in the time when there's a recent movie about Napoleon. I didn't actually see this movie. There's a recent movie about Napoleon that got some critique for being factually incorrect and historically incorrect. All fine and good. But what was it like to be Napoleon? Remember, when Napoleon was around, there was no Napoleon that he could base his life on. There was no mythology of who he was. He just was who he was. And he didn't go into the next day saying, oh, this is what Napoleon does. No, he just went in the next day doing what he does. And what he did that day happened to be what Napoleon would do. And but that's not the way a movie works. A movie works in the complete other way around, in which we know what you're supposed to accomplish here, so now we need to emotionally step into the scene and accomplish what you need to accomplish. It's completely backwards. And how much of our life has become that way ourselves? We take more pictures than any other generation in history. People like me do things like this. I have 25 followers. I get maybe 50, 60 views on a video. This is small potatoes. But this kind of thing grows sometimes into thousands, if not millions of people. And that would be kind of bizarre for what I'm doing, but it could happen. You never know. And that's the thing. We are all in this situation where we are at once living our lives and playing our lives. All of life is to some extent a performance. As Shakespeare said, all of life is a stage, and we are merely players. Or forgive me for misquoting Shakespeare, but you get the point. Is that there is a sense in which we are players, but we're players without a script. That's the important thing. We're players without a script. We don't have a script. Okay, and this kind of idea of performance without a script, this kind of sense in which we are just enacting a role that is different, only being that we don't have a script from a role that someone like this would play. This is what we're getting at here. Our approach to right now is based on our reflection on our past. But if you are playing in a movie, your role right now is not based on reflection of your past. It's based on a reflection of what the moment is. And so there's a weird way in which you're living in the moment, almost even perhaps for the future, when you're acting, when in real life we are living in a reflection of our past. So these are the kinds of issues, these are the kinds of ideas this book brings up. And I got maybe a little confusing right there in the middle there, talking about all life being acting. It is, but it's a different kind of acting, and that's the point. That's the point you want to focus on here. That the kind of celebrity culture that we live in has produced people who enact this way, enact these emotions before us, and actually they are now ironically teaching us how to act in our real lives. So we may not actually, in fact, know how to act when we walk out of that room in that argument with our girlfriend. But we've seen it in a movie, and we know how that guy acted in that movie. And so we know how to act. We may even find ourselves quoting consciously or unconsciously the words that character has said and emulating the kind of emotions. So there's a weird way in which that action, which is based on a artificial approach to a scene has become, for us, the reality when we approach the same thing. Okay, and these are core to what Yukio Mishima wants to look at in this book. Okay? All right, so I hope that clears up some of, I just don't think I did a very good job the first time talking about the complexity of this novel. It's short, yes, but it is that kind of short vignette that just kind of allows you to focus very tightly on something. And it really is kind of almost claustrophobic on purpose because we're stuck in this situation. And in a longer work, perhaps the character would suffer a mental breakdown or leave this place, or we'd see him devolve into drugs or perhaps some kind of other kind of addictive behavior because of this. But in this, all we get is a snapshot of how this works. All right. Take care. Have a good night.